a smith at the time, they're going to be doing a lot of repair work. There's a lot of shoeing horses, but a lot of it is wagon repair, any kind of firearms. Smiths have a lot of different tools. It's not just hammers and anvils. I have a small vise to do any kind of file work. Piles of tongs to hold steel, to hold hot iron. Let's see here. One thing I want to show you. This is known as a nail header to make nails. So nails are another thing that they would have done a lot of. And then this is called a screw plate. In modern times we'd call that a die to make threads for screws. So this you could use for, gunsmiths would use this, but any kind of small jobs, you can see there's, basically you would just work this around over a small piece of iron. But there's piles of different kinds of tools, lots of different measuring tools, dividers, compasses, maybe if you're lucky a ruler, but a lot of things weren't really measured by measurement, it was by proportions, right? So things like a traveler, so you can figure out the length of your wheel, what size band you need, and there's no specific measurements. All you're doing is just counting revolutions on a wheel. That way you can match it to another iron band. So there's a lot of that in the blacksmithing world, but everything is pretty much handwork. There's no, if you're not hot forging, you're filing, and smiths would carry a lot of different files with them. Just to that was more than half the work, honestly. The sound of the anvil was one sound you'd hear in a shop or in a traveling forge, but the other is the sound of a file. Lots of cold work that would be done as well, which means cold chisels, that kind of thing as well. It all depends on what you have to repair. When you're out in the field, it can be anything. It can be maybe you have a carpenter following with you and you need to repair a chisel. So maybe he's worn his chisel down, so he needed to weld a new piece of steel into his iron chisel. These are two pieces, right? So there's wrought iron at the top that goes all the way down actually to the end, and then just the tip from here, on the bottom, there's steel. You can see there's a little seam there. So this is steel, but all on the top is all wrought iron. Wrought iron is soft. It doesn't hold an edge well, and so the smith would be doing a lot of repairing of that. If the army's using axes, picks, any kind of engineering tools, would eventually probably visit the shop or visit a traveling forge. Sure, this is a French-designed traveling forge. It's about half scale. That was developed in the 1765, but hung on well into the middle of the 19th century. This kind of style of forge. But yeah, I mean, it's this is kind of typical of what you would see if following an army. Not really like a civilian or like a personal company would be using this potentially, but there's not a lot of documentation surrounding traveling forges until later, until like the 1860s, 1840s, that kind of thing. So yes, this is something that the army would have traveling with them. There would be a lot of other wagons following them. Take care. Supporting. There's a huge wagon train supporting armies at the time. So this is basically just a working, just a traveling workshop. You have a small set of tools, but everything else would be behind you. So your anvil, all your coal, all your material will be in another wagon. So that's why you don't see, it looks pretty simple. It's because this is just a workstation. These would typically be stationed with the cannons, and then with cavalry. So with cavalry, it obviously would be shoeing horses, but then with the cannons, it would be maintaining the guns, maintaining the carriages for the guns, and that entire wagon train that's following you. This is a coal rake, a very standard item that you use just to maintain your fire. If I kind of work from the front to the back of the wagon, you have your forge pan, which is where all the work's happening, where the fire's sitting. And then as you go back, there's a small pipe that they called in the day a two-air, which is French, and it's just an air pipe. And as you go further back, you have a bellows. In this time period, it's a double chamber. So as you can see, when I pump it, the bottom lifts up and it pushes the top leaf up. So you have the bottom leaf and the top leaf and a middle board, and there's two valves on the inside. They didn't have rotary fan blowers then. They didn't have kind of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but this is how things were done then. And so it's a leather wrapped around a wood body with leather valves, and as you lift it up, like I said, it pushes the air up, and you get a steady stream. You can see I can pump it up and just let go. And you can still see it's blowing air into the fire, and it will do that for if I really pump it up, maybe a good 15, 20 seconds, something like that. So it gives me time to do the work I'm doing. I don't have to sit here and pump all day. Now, obviously, in this kind of setting, it wouldn't be one person with following the wagon, working in the wagon. You'd probably have multiple guys. They did a lot of sledge work then for bigger pieces of iron. So you'd have a guy with anywhere between a 6 to 10 pound sledgehammer. And then you could have a guy helping work the bellows, start the forge, multiple different kinds of jobs going on at the same time. So it was a pretty busy spot in the Army. There's a lot to do. Slowly working on this is something that you would see people work on then, smiths working on then, because for the most part they were one of the few trades that made their own tools. There's a couple exceptions to things like an anvil. Or you might have a shop where they send the bellows out to be made somewhere else. But generally speaking, they're making all their own tools. Hammers, tongs, dies, not really files, hacksaws, all that stuff would have been, you could actually order through a catalog early into the 18th century. A lot of things were being produced in England. So, while this is heating up, I'll show you. These are some, let's see, they disappeared on me there. These are some tools that are actually 18th century or early 19th century pieces that would have been made in England. So dividers, a screw plate, those are things that a smith would order because it's so specialized. Or things like files, like I said, are hacksaw blades. So they're not going to be making those in their forges. They don't have the time for that. They could just go buy that from a hardware store or a supplier, go down to a dock somewhere and buy the crate. So this started off as just a small piece of half-inch round or half-inch square bar that I've slowly drawn out, and drawing out is when you stretch the metal lengthwise, slowly into what you can eventually see will be a small pair of pliers. You've got a little step here. This would be your jaw right here. It takes a little bit of time to make it into shape. But most important is just keeping everything straight and neat and orderly. There's a little bit of strength involved in this kind of stuff, but for the most part, I'm a pretty skinny guy, and there's it's more about the skill of knowing where to put the hammer and that kind of stuff than it is about having brute strength. The brute strength can come later, which can be helpful. And there's a lot of guys you see that are like big, burly guys, but that the reality is that I've watched 80-year-old men that look like a really good stiff wind could blow them over, and they know how to swing a hammer. So. Yeah.
Hey, Eric.
Right.
What's the difference between a butcher and a flirt?
I don't know what.
One kills to dress, the other dresses to kill.
So we're called the Ministers of Apollo. I'm Eric, and this is my wife, Eliza. Yep.
And tell us a little bit about what you do.
We are a group of musicians and historians dedicated to bringing the past to the present through the power of music, because music is that one language that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, everybody listens to music, everybody can relate to music somehow, and in that way we can create the first stepping stones to a new appreciation of history.
Now, would you be a traveling troupe now?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We're actually local. We live in Wanacue.
Right.
The music that was done at the time, was that written by the groups that traveled, or was there a source for music?
Oh, there was a source.
Yeah.
One of the most popular ones was Stephen Foster. You might recognize some of his tunes today.
Yeah. So I mean, there were traveling troops that would play in theaters. Some would go all from America would go to London and things. Some of them wrote their own songs. Sometimes they pretended to, but someone actually wrote it. Behind the scenes. So. But it's an interesting, type of music. So this is called a banjo, and it's a fretless banjo. It's a copy of one from the 1840s. So this is the type of instrument that it was like the electric guitar of its time. Became very popular amongst all people of society. Maybe a blacksmith might play it, also a professional musician, maybe someone in the Hewitt family played it. I don't know, it's possible. But it was, and what was interesting about this, it started off as more of like a folk instrument, and by after the time of the Civil War into the 1890s, very well-to-do New York City ladies actually had orchestras of different types of banjos that they played. So we don't think of the banjo so much as a aristocratic, high-class instrument, but at the end of the 1800s it actually was.
Now, would you perform typically at fairs, or where would you perform most of the time?
Like what we do now, or back at that time?
Back at that time.
Sure. It could be parlor music just in the house to entertain friends and family. It could be at theaters. So just like they would have operas, they would also have different shows that featured the banjo of the time. So it's just a big range of things. Yeah, definitely different socials that towns could have at the time. Sure. So this number is "Oh Susanna" by Stephen Foster.
I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I was going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. It rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry. Sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry, oh Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. Oh Susanna, don't you cry for me. Come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I had a dream the other night, but everything was still. I thought I saw Susanna dear coming down the hill. Not thinking was in her mouth, the tears was in her eye. Says I am coming from the south. Susanna, don't you cry, oh Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. Soon I'll be in New Orleans and then I'll look around. When I find Susanna, I'll fall down on the ground. And if I do not find her, I know I'll surely die. And when I'm dead and buried, Susanna, don't you cry, oh Susanna, don't you cry for me. you.
Let me ask you, just out of curiosity,
Sure.
that your voice is more what I would call operatic.
Yes, and that's for a specific purpose, all right? For one, it is the healthiest way to get your voice to project, because we don't have microphones in the 1800s, so the best way to fill a concert hall so everybody can hear is with a more operatic voice. And at the time period, it was considered more genteel, more beautiful to listen to. It was definitely an aesthetic that they enjoyed. So it served two purposes.
Taylor Swift would be out of luck.
Yeah. All I'm saying is I don't have a private jet like she does, or a football player husband. I have a banjo player husband. He's pretty cool.
It's good
though.
enough, right?
Yeah, I like you more anyway.
Thanks.
Away from Mississippi's vale, with my own path good for a sail, across upon the cotton bale to the rose of Bonnie, landing on the fossil bank and sat upon a plank. There I made the banjo twang for the rose of Bonnie. Oh, brown rose of Bonnie, the sweet tobacco posy is my rose of Bonnie. Oh, brown rose of Bonnie, the sweet tobacco posy is my rose of Bonnie. My sister, sit where you please, across my leg she took her ease. It's good to go upon the knee, the rose of Bonnie. The river rose, the cricket sang, the lightning bugged in flashes wing, and I put up my hands I fling with the rose of Bonnie. Oh, brown rose of Bonnie, sweet tobacco posy is my rose of Bonnie. Oh, brown rose of Bonnie, the sweet tobacco posy is my rose of Bonnie.
All right, first of all, tell me your name.
Michaela.
Celeste Sherry.
And you are a...
Right now, I'm a spinning dame teaching this young lady how to spin. She's doing a wonderful, wonderful job. And she has been spinning on a drop spindle, which looks a little bit like this. So this is where students would begin their lessons, on a drop spindle. And then they transfer these skills to the spinning wheel, which is what she's doing now for the very first time. And a lovely job again. So, but the trick is getting the treadling action down while she's drafting out the wool. It's very much, have you ever played a piano?
Kind of.
Kind of. Okay, so you know when you play piano, you've got to do two different things with each hand. You ever do, two different things, then all of a sudden both hands are doing the same thing? That's what you have to do here. Same thing, only it's your foot and your hands. But it's hard to get it, what they call differentiated. So, I'm just going to draft this out for you a little bit more. Okay. Now, start treadling. Good, good, good. Whoops. Always make sure that it's going all the way over before you push down again. Okay, good, good. But if you see that this is not coming up and over, then you have to take a hand and push it over, okay? Just like I've been doing. I've been your third hand. Good, good, good. Well, very good. Okay. All right. So, this is what I want to do for you right now. I'm going to break that off. and I want you to do nothing but treadle. See, that you have to get that mastered before you start with the spinning. And you see how much better it's going when you treadle faster, okay? Good, good. Keep up that rhythm, that speed. Push, 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 push. Faster, push, push. Yeah. Okay. This is what you have to do. This is just the same as practicing your penmanship. You've got to practice the treadling. One thing at a time, darling. You're doing marvelously. I'm very proud of you. You should be proud of yourself too. All right?
Can you tell me a little bit about the spinning wheel and what it is and how it all works and what the product was used for?
The spinning wheel, like I said, graduated from this drop spindle. In 1300, the great wheel was invented, and essentially what it did was that it took this drop spindle and put it on its side. There would be a drive band that came around and turned the spindle, which gives a twist into the wool fiber. So this is how wool, thread, and yarn was made for millennia. And like I said, in 1300, the great wheel was invented, and then for the next 200 years, that was how wool yarn was made alongside the drop spindle. Around 1525, in Germany, in Saxony, Germany, this treadle wheel was invented. This is now known as a Saxony wheel. This freed up the spinner's hands completely, because with the 1300 wheel, you had to take one hand to turn the wheel and the other hand to spin the wool. But now that you're able to use both hands to spin the wool and the foot to turn the drive wheel was a huge, huge improvement, and it made wool yarn production much faster.
So this was invented in the UK. In the
I beg pardon?
It was invented in the United Kingdom.
No, actually it was invented in Germany. So the wheels were made in the UK, all over Europe, in the American colonies and the newer United States. I have a great wheel at home that was made in Maine in 1825. And I just got another wheel similar to this that was probably about 1840, 1850, made in the United States in Pennsylvania. So
I would have thought that they would have been invented in Scotland with all the sheep up there.
there are a lot of sheep in England. There are a lot of sheep in Spain and all throughout Europe. Where the sheep were, that's where the spinning tools were as well, definitely. There were a lot of sheep in Scandinavia. That's why you had a lot of wonderful Viking tools and such. In Scotland, they would have had a device like this. This is known as a Scottish drop spindle, or in Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic, it's known as a gelligan. And it works the same way. You twirl it and you draft out the wool fiber, and the spinning puts the twist into the fiber. And once this, what they call the cop, is filled, then you can just slip it right off and you've got a center pull ball of yarn. But this is a shape that's unique to Scotland. I haven't seen it in any other country.
Now, the end product, would the same person who spun the yarn make something out of it, or was this a commercial venture that they sold that yarn to somebody else?
It depends greatly upon the spinner and the spinner's social situation. If you are making homespun for your own family use, yes, you would have had the finished yarn being knitted or most likely put on a loom and woven into wool cloth. Not everybody had a loom or knew how to use a loom. There might have been small looms in a given household, but if you've seen the size of a loom, they're huge. They will take up most of a room. So what a lot of people in rural and semi-rural areas in America did, they waited for the itinerant weaver to come around in a wagon. His loom was on the wagon, and for a fee, which would usually be a percentage of the completed cloth, he would take your spun yarn, put it on the loom, that's called dressing the loom, and weave it into cloth. And he would do this all over the place. So yes, there were people who did know how to spin and weave, and theirs was a definite home cottage industry. I don't know much about the private business of selling the yarns and such in the 19th century. I know in the 18th century it was a bone of contention before the Revolution, because people were restricted to sell their finished product. It was even difficult to sell the wool from the sheep to anybody else. You could keep and use and produce wool products for your own family use. But because of the good old Wool Acts of 1699, that limited any kind of commerce. All the wool and the yarn had to go back to Mother England, where it was usually finished into cloth. It was then very possibly printed and then shipped back to the colonies with a nice fat tariff on it. So we had to buy our own material back from England. So that was one of the reasons why you may have seen instances of spinning bees that were used, they were they were organized as a protest, as a boycott for British woolen goods. And I have to do more research on it, but legend says that George Washington decreed that the Continental troops had to be uniformed in homespun wool. And I start to spin, and it just incorporates itself right in.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm.
And it's faster than I see. Like it's
Yes,
faster.
it's faster.
It's faster than I thought.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. So now, as you were saying,
Oh, see?
I'm at the end, so I have to
Okay.
put more on. This is some wool that I had carded to a little bit like combing.
You want that right? Part of the wool.
And just laying one on top of the other. Maybe stretch it out a little bit. And then spin. And the wool fibers will catch on each other and just become part of the new yarn.
So by twisting and pulling, this is formed.
Exactly. Because again, I'm just drafting out, I'm controlling the amount of fiber that goes into a length of yarn. And as soon as I release the pressure on my forward hand, that thread, that twist goes right up.
So you can make it as thick or as thin as you like.
Exactly. And I can make it thick easily by using 2 or 3 or 4 singles But here,
Okay, like
I
you
put a
showed
lot of
us,
twist in
double.
here, so if you
Uh-huh.
watch between my fingers, and there's that
Uh-huh.
twist that goes right up. But as I
Look, double.
put more in, I can double it,
And it twists by
and
itself. Oh, wonderful.
yeah, this will self-ply. When I ply it on the spinning wheel, I'm going clockwise right now. When I ply it, I will go counterclockwise. That way I don't lose my original twist. But I could take that rack that's over there,
Yes.
and it's set up with 3 bobbins. I could take 3 strands of thread and respin them together to make a larger
Yes.
yarn. I usually do a 2-ply yarn, but I've done 3-ply, 4-ply is next on my list to try, but that will make a much fatter, stronger yarn.
Warmer too.
And much warmer, definitely.
How are you? I'm Myra Petretti, lace maker. Okay, I am making bobbin lace, and essentially I'm weaving from one side to the other, except my thread is attached at the top with the pins at the bottom to the bobbins. And these are traditional Honiton lace bobbins. Honiton lace was one of Queen Victoria's favorite laces, and she had ordered a bunch of lace from the area, which would be like the Devon area, southern England, to revive the lace industry, because machine industry was starting to be, come to into vogue. So essentially, I'm just weaving back and forth to make my design. And so this lace is a made of motifs like this, and the motifs would be gathered and put together artfully to create a veil, a christening gown. So all the lace that Queen Victoria had ordered through her at the beginning of her marriage, she used through the all her years, and so she became well known for her lace. And when Prince Albert died, she took all that lace and had it dyed black. So she continued wearing her lace all through her life. So as I weave back and forth and I get to a dot in my pattern, this is my pattern right here, I will be putting in a pin. And so then that pin gets a stitch underneath it. So then when I make my stitch underneath, the pattern is formed and the thread develops memory to stay in place. So
I have a question for you.
yes,
Okay. These are, we call them bobbins?
bobbins.
Okay. They're color coded?
No, well actually they're hand painted, a lot of them.
Just say the bobbins are.
The bobbins are hand painted. There's a couple bobbins here. I'm sure you've heard of Downton Abbey. Down the road a piece from Devon. So this is what the bobbins looks like, which is very similar to these. And the reason I'm using those at each end is because I can feel for the thicker thread, which is what, like an outline. Each country and sometimes each area had their own particular type of bobbin, but essentially it's a stick with a little neck to wind the thread around.
How do you know which bobbin to use?
Well, like I said, I'm weaving to make a design. And so I'm going from one edge to the other of this leaf here. So I'll pin on this end, walk to that other end, put a pin, come back and forth. But if I were making a different type of lace, which is also made, this is what most people think of when they think of lace, is the continuous lace that you can make and buy by the yards. And so here I would look for my highest point that has not been yet made. And in this case, it would be somewhere around here. And so when I take my threads and I sort of spread them out and I look, I see that there's a couple pairs that want to meet at that spot. So that's how I know which pairs to use and where to go.
How long does it take you to make something like this?
Fine lace is made at the rate of 1 square inch per hour. This could be considered fine lace because I'm using I believe it's like 140 size thread in cotton, which is fairly fine. Here, this is a little thicker, so this would be made a lot quicker. This type of lace, I'm constantly thinking, okay, I need to add a pair because it's starting to widen. So right now, you know what I mean, I'm not too far from where I have to add a pair. So let me just back up a little bit. And so to add pairs, all I have to do is sort of hang them around and then bring them into the work.
Let me ask you one other question and then we'll move on.
Sure.
Who was obviously Queen Victoria. Did everyday people wear this lace?
It depends on what country you were at, but there also lace history. There's been like a sumptuary law saying, okay, only these people can wear lace, and if there may be some taxation involved also. So, but generally it was the aristocracy that had all the access to the lace. And so, but I think by Queen Victoria's time, things were a little bit looser. But generally, like in Middle Ages was when lace was in its heyday. And so many laces were made for rich people and for churches. A lot of it was made with gold, which got melted down. And, as children inherited, and there wasn't a whole lot of money to be inherited. Okay, so all I do is just take a pair and wrap it around, and I just bring it into the work and continue making my stitches.
Shoulder, arms. Right. Wheel. Pull. Company. Freeze at arms. Shoulder, arms.
Close your pen.
Corporal,
Yes.
why don't you have them unfix bayonets and continue drilling them here, and then the crew here might have some questions.
Okay.
Detachment, unfix your bayonets. Shoulder, arms. Line of the column by the left. Forward, march. Left about wheel, march. Step, step, step. Okay, now we do column into line by the right. So this would be more of a battle technique. So what we're going to do is, when I say march, you're just going to swing into line, forming a line. So line into column, a column into line by the right, march. Advance, arms. Shoulder, arms. Right about, face. Left, face. Right, face. Right about, face. Order, arms. In place, rest. Do you have any questions so far?
These would be uniforms from what era?
This is the British Army during peacetime service in around 1839, the reign of Queen Victoria.
Uh-huh. And those muskets, those are muskets? What are those? What are
Yes.
the guns?
These are what's called the third model Brown Bess, Indian pattern. These would have been used from 1790 up until about the 1850s when they switched to the P-53 Enfield.
So those are made in England?
Yes, these would have been made in England. They were originally made by the East India Company in India, hence the name India pattern. It's a little shorter than some of the previous models used by the British Army.
And lighter?
No. They are all roughly about 10 pounds. You just load about, actually I can show you. Sean, can you step forward? Sean here is actually using the first model Brown Bess.
Second model.
You got the second model, so you put yours there. And then mine's the third model. So you can see they're all about 10 pounds. But all they did was they shortened the barrel once they realized length of the barrel didn't mean the gun went farther.
But it didn't change the weight.
No.
So the poor guys in the field are still carrying around the heavy gun.
And if you were really unlucky, because these were made by individual contractors, so there was a pattern, but there could be slight differences. His gun is actually slightly heavier at 12 pounds because they use a different wood than we use. You could use oak, teak, pine in some cases, but yeah, it basically depends on where the gun was made and what resources they had.
Ammunition, what kind of ammunition did you use?
You would have a paper cartridge with a 75 caliber lead ball. So what you would do, you would tear the cartridge with your teeth, pour some into the pan, you would shut the pan, cast about, pour it in, push the lead ball in, and have to ram it a couple times. And that's what you have to do every time you want to fire the gun. You can do about 3 rounds a minute.
Now, these guns are all functional?
Yes, these are all replica muskets that are capable of firing blanks.
But you can't fire it today?
No, fire 50.
Today we can't fire it. I'm not sure if you have one, but for reference,
Oh yeah, that's a good one to show.
this right here. So in here is our cartridge pouch. As you can see, I have a series of cartridges, just only a short amount today, but a series of cartridges in here. And then yes, what we're referring to is this right here is our cartridge. The only thing that makes this different from a live round is that at this very end right here would have been our musket ball. But obviously we're not going to be carrying live rounds, so this is a blank cartridge. And as he mentioned, we tear off the top of the paper from here, we place it into our pan, shut our pan, take the rest of the cartridge where we would take it up here, and as he mentioned, we would then ram down the cartridge so that this goes all the way down to the end here. Then it would be ready to fire once we've returned our ram.
What was the range of this kind of a weapon?
Well, it depends. There are a lot of modern sources we tend to over-exaggerate how short of a range they actually had, but they were actually arguably much farther. You can be devastating with a volley of muskets within 100 yards, so a football field.
Yeah, 50 yards or below is considered very close range. The average estimated range we use is about 100 yards for accurate gunfire. After that, the ball might start to drop. You're also not aiming directly at a person, so I wouldn't be tracking them per se in line. So we basically, ideally, we would have close to 1,000 men into this regiment. We're basically just sending 1,000 rounds downrange, hoping to hit as many people as we can. If I'm aiming at the guy in the middle, but I somehow hit the guy 3 guys down to his left, same results. And it's basically, it comes down to which side can keep up that rate of fire faster and longer. Because these guns do foul. Black powder has a very chemical reaction inside the barrel. It gets very gummy and it becomes harder to load. So it would be not uncommon for soldiers to having to step out of line after 10 to 15 rounds, taking the canteen, having to scrub out the barrel. We have what's called a pick and a whisk, which is actually in my inside pocket right now, and you just have to clear out the hole. Because this gets all messy, you might have to resharpen your flint or change your flints. So it comes down to who's the best drilled, who can keep their keep calm, and keep the guns functioning and the ammo supply continuously coming. Because a soldier only carried about 40 to 60 rounds, which if you're firing 3 rounds a minute at full rate, which you don't have to do the entire battle, but it'll allow you to, you want to be able to keep up firing.
The time frame on these weapons and those uniforms, tell me, this would not be revolutionaries?
No, actually the first model was the gun. First,
if I may?
Yeah. The first and second model were used during the American Revolution. The third model would replace it in the 1790s and would be used up until the 1840s when they came out with the tower pattern, which would have been converted from flintlocks into a percussion, and then in P-53 in 1853, which became the first percussion musket of the British Army.
Oh, okay.
The uniform that you're asking about, this particular uniform is patterned for 1836, and the shako that he's wearing is a pattern from 1834, and we are representing 1839 thereabouts. So Queen Victoria has just been on the throne. She was crowned only in 1837. She becomes the queen. She's actually crowned a little bit later. But yes, this is the uniform. It's very similar to what had been worn against Napoleon, but there have been some stylistic changes with the time.
And this style would stay in relatively the same until the 1850s when they would go into Crimea, and then they
changed things a lot.
It's very subtle changes until like the 1850s when it would be a drastic change.
Right. The shakos that we're wearing, those would change. This particular style, with the shape, sort of flare, they call it like a bell crown. That's very indicative of the 1820s to early 1840s. This uniform was worn in Afghanistan. This uniform was worn in Canada. This uniform was worn in India. It was worn in all the colonies. There could be certain modifications depending on where you were, but in general, this is what we wore around the empire.
But it looks very heavy. I mean, if you're in India in the summertime, that's got to be a pretty hot place to be.
Yeah, it is, without a doubt.
Sean, can you give me a first sec?
Yeah, you can even see the uniform that I'm wearing is a little bit different. I am an officer. I command this unit, and so I have to purchase my own equipment as opposed to they have something that's issued. Oh, I see why you brought Private McAvoy.
So on campaign, and especially in hotter climates, the British Army would quickly learn to adapt. So this is what we would wear as a fatigue uniform. So if you were doing camp duties or anything like that, this is what we were required to wear. This used to be a white coat with regimental facings. Yeah, they changed it to red in what, the 1820s?
1830.
1830. So on campaign, as you can see, that this uniform is much simpler and lighter than what I have on. So this would be more practical, especially in a hot climate. You got with the fatigue hat, and a simple thing that would do is they would put a white cover, or you can get a waterproof black cover, and would have a neck guard. So in the hot sun, it will protect him. Other subtle changes they would make is you would actually take old musket slings and you would make a belt, so when you're running, these belts would actually stay in place. Because right now, the only thing keeping my belts in place is this belt plate holding everything locked in. But if you're trying to climb a ladder, if you're storming like when they were fighting Afghanistan, they had to storm a couple castles. So if you're climbing a ladder, the last thing you want to do is have your gear jumbling around. Because on top of this, you would have a haversack, your canteen, which isn't pinned down. So this will allow you to move around in place.
This jacket is also unlined.
Yes.
Whereas our uniforms are lined. This is his working uniform for sure. If we were, these are expensive.
Yes.
And the British Army doesn't like to spend money if it doesn't have to. So you would be issued a new uniform coat once a year. This is your only clothing that you have. So if you can protect that when you're doing jobs like collecting firewood, gathering water, working on projects, building, things like that, the fatigue uniform is a good alternative to protect your nice coatee.
Yeah, and one thing officers and horse guard would slowly start to realize is, especially on campaign, the soldiers really started to hate the shakeout. There was a soldier in Afghanistan who made false claims saying that he was able to cook bacon on top of his hat because this is leather, so in the hot sun he was claiming he could make bacon. And then in the 1850s, when they were in India, soldiers were notorious for what they would do is we had an unvisored fatigue hat. So you would do is you take your shako off, rip the visor off, sew it onto your fatigue hat, and then you can just use this to scoop up water or just toss it. And then soldiers don't care, but then the colonel had to answer why there's a couple hundred shakos missing from the rosters and had to be replaced.
Also, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but the soldier's absolute favorite piece of equipment is here.
Leather neck stock.
He has a leather neck stock, which is to keep his head up. We don't want him slumping and slouching, and we don't want him looking left and right. We want him to look forward. We want to keep his head up.
He's only supposed to face wherever we tell him to face.
So that's an essential part of the uniform. They're not liked, and those would be abolished in 1855.
This is where we would have the musket ball. It would be wrapped in that paper.
So bowl first, and then the powder.
So what we would do is, let me grab a musket.
I know how to do, but I want to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see. So what would happen is, to load one of these, we would reach into this pouch and we would take out the cartridge that I showed you, right? So what we would do is we open this up. Now, look closely. You see that hole? It's hard to see, but there's a very small hole. B wants to see it too. But yeah, so there's a very small hole in there. They call that a touch hole. That's very important. So when we get this out, we take it from the top here, this little piece, and we would bite off the top. Then you hear all that gunpowder there. We pour that gunpowder inside that.
How much do you pour there?
Not too much, just a little, so that it gets inside that little bit here, like that spoon-looking thing. Just a little powder would go into there. Then what we would do, we shut this, because this is very important. We take the rest of that cartridge. Now remember I said the musket ball is like that. So we turn this upside down as we pour the rest of the powder in, and then we put this like that. Then we would go and reach into our ramrod, and we would ram the cartridge down. So what we would be doing is we would be pushing that down all the way down.
With the paper or
with the paper?
With the paper.
With the paper. Because the thing is, what's important, that paper, it's what they call wadding. It makes sure that musket ball is nice and tight in the barrel. So when it flies out.
I thought they just did the ball and the powder. I never knew
Yep.
they did the
Yeah, some you
paper.
can. You've probably seen like the hunters with that funny horn, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I have one.
Yeah, see, exactly. You got a powder horn, right? Yeah.
That's a rifleman's powder puff.
Yeah, that's a rifleman's powder horn, exactly. But this is a little different. This is a musket. It's smooth bore. So instead, we use that paper and everything. So that's what you have cartridge. That's why they call these cartridges. We take this, we got to make sure we take it back.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah, because if we don't take that back, that's going to go flying out with the musket, and then we with the shot, and then we can't use it again. So then it would be ready to fire. And so what we would do is, of course, to get it ready to fire, since it's not loaded, I can show you this. We push this back. Now, you know what they call this?
A flintlock.
Well, yes, you're right. The whole thing is a flintlock, and that is a piece of flint. So you're right. But this right here, this in particular, this is known as a cock. You know why? Because it looks almost kind of like the head of a chicken, right? That's its beak, that's its head. So they call it the cock, because cock is another word for chicken. This right here is our frizzen. This is very important. This needs to make a spark.
So this goes back down. The flint strikes against the steel.
Yep.
Then it makes a spark in there, ignites the powder, and then the ball goes flying out.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I'm going to press this trigger for you, and you're going to notice, look closely, you'll see some sparks. Did you see those sparks?
Yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah, right? One more time. Few sparks, right?
Yeah.
So those sparks go into there, and exactly as you said, they ignite that gunpowder there. The fire goes into that small hole, ignites that, and then it fires. And so that's how this musket works. But as you've probably seen, right? One thing that's just as important for this musket, more, even arguably more than that going off and everything, is this right here, which is our bayonet. This right here attaches on like this. Exactly. We charge at the enemy. We attack with this thing here, hand to hand. But yeah, that is our main
Just in case
weapons.
you need to shoot, you can still shoot.
Exactly. So you can see right here, there's the hole. So you can still shoot if you need to. So that right there, yeah, that's our weapon. So that's what you were saying. We can't fire it today because of the fire restrictions. Because that's another thing. Is once you know, these are fireworks basically. They're basically using the same gunpowder.
Shoots a projectile.
Yep. Exactly.
So
And-
can I ask, we went to Ticonderoga. It's
yep.
all American. Now it's British, so we see the other side.
Yes.
And the flints they used was like, they had bends. So he told us this was very easy to disassemble when they came. He said this is more difficult. So can you
Absolutely, yes.
tell us how you clean the British one?
So the British one, yes. So this right here, this
Those
weapon,
French,
Charleville
French.
muskets.
Thank
Yep.
you, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Those were French Charleville muskets. The Americans got the Charleville during the Revolution, and they loved it so much. It was a great design that after the American Revolution, they made basically copies of them. And they were known as Springfield muskets. And then the Springfield stayed with the American Army, going all the way up even into World War I. But keep in mind, it's not the same gun. But the Springfield Armory would be making all of these guns. Anyway, though, but yes, the Brown Bess. So this weapon here, the one I'm using, is known as the second model Brown Bess. Now, if you want to be really, really boring, you can actually call it by its official name, which is the Short Land Pattern Musket. But if you go online these days, or even if you're just talking about it, even in history books, they call this the Brown Bess musket. And this is in particular the second model of it. So this was actually, this came out, and this was used during the American Revolution. The ones you would more likely see us using is something known as the third model Brown Bess, or what they call the India pattern musket. So it was a little bit shorter. They made it, they basically found a way to make this cheaper. Not necessarily better, but cheaper, and that's why they went with it. So it's still, though, identical. They practically look exactly the same. We'll show you a shorter one. But what it was, though, is, yes, as I showed you how it operated, the way we would clean this right here is a brass plate. We would unscrew that. Then this lock comes out. Then we can clean that individually. And then if we had to disassemble it, kind of like how you saw the French Charleville, there's some slight differences. If you look closely, there are pins, so like nails. There are little nails here. And so we would have to hammer away to get those nails out. Remove this brass piece, remove that brass piece, remove that brass piece, and then take the barrel off.
Did you find it that they worn out quicker because if you disassemble, or they just skip this step?
They're fine. Now, mind you, that is one thing is like when it comes to, say, for example, a soldier maintaining his weapon, he wouldn't have to do that. That would have to be an armorer. And that would only be for some kind of extensive cleaning or if they had to replace the stock.
So they usually didn't do that? Just
usually didn't. Yeah, what we would do is we would take out our lock, we would clean this down, and we would make sure, most importantly, that this is clean. So we would clean down the barrel and everything. But otherwise, though, yeah, actually removing it, we didn't have to worry so much.
So did they use water to clean this?
Yes, yeah. So you would usually use like boiling water or something along those lines. But obviously, after that, you have to make sure it's dry, and you then have to make sure it's oiled. So it's usually an oil that they would source from hunting.
So the wood does not rot because of water, because they use oil to preserve it?
Yeah, you always want to make sure it oils up because oil is incredibly important for maintaining this. Even modern day, we clean this with modern gun cleaning
They use
oils.
lard or what?
Not lard, no. Lard would be, lard gets cold easily and that would be problematic. But you would want, I believe that...
What kind of oil did they use?
It's an animal oil. I forget the exact animal. Because, yeah, it was usually an animal oil of some form where it would stay lubricated and clean. But yes, that would be what we would use to wipe this down because as you can see, it's nice. But even when you look very closely, you can see that there's a little bit of rust that kind of develops here. And if this thing isn't maintained quickly, say for example, even now, since I've been holding it all day, if I go home tonight and I just store it away, in 2 weeks' time, this can start to get covered in rust. So you always need to wipe it down, and especially after firing, you have to make sure you clean it.
Okay, tell me why you're dressed differently than the others.
Because I'm one of the remnants of the Emperor Napoleon's Grand Armée, and having lost his second abdication after Waterloo, because we rallied to Napoleon, we were cashiered out of the army without funds. So in order to spare my life, myself and many others emigrated to England, hoping that we could start a new life there because our lives were in danger in France under the Bourbons. So I'm having spent 27 years in the military fighting for the Republic and for the Emperor. We tossed the cards and paid the price. We lost, and those that did got penalized for it, and they disbanded the 16th. So I had no place in the Army anymore. So, being destitute, I managed to sneak on board a ship heading to England, emigrated there, and I've been here ever since, living in abject poverty.
So they wouldn't take you into the English Army?
Nope. Well, plus I was in my 50s at that point. I was well past the age. I was wounded 6 times in Europe, in the peninsula. My body had had enough.
So that wasn't an option. So
Yeah.
did you get work, or was there discrimination against you because you were French?
Discrimination, because like Napoleon, we thought we could plead our case to the English. Well, that was silly because the English really didn't like us, especially not being Bourbon-minded, the royalty. So we were kind of pariahs. And do whatever we can for a few bits of money here, maybe a handout of food. Basically lived in the streets.
And the British government allowed you? They didn't throw you out?
No, didn't throw us out, but they didn't help us either. you sink or swim on your own. So I'm what's left.
Did you have any other clothing with you when you left France?
Yeah, but over the years, clothing disappears or it gets stolen. So basically what I had is what I have. And when this goes, you just find somebody that A, is not going to be using any more clothing, or you see some clothing hang up and hope that it fits you. You steal, basically, to stay alive.
Were there a lot of people like you?
Yes.
But how many actually left France at the time?
Thousands.
Thousands. And did you all go to England?
Well, some went to England, some went to Scandinavia, some went, well, they wouldn't go to Spain because Spain had no use for the French. So we'd go to maybe Italy, anywhere but France, because basically you're walking around with a target on your back because you had dissed the royal family and went back to the emperor, sign of betrayal, disloyalty, so you were marked men. And France would do nothing to help you and do everything to hinder you. So that's why we emigrated out of France to anybody that would not reject us. And many went to America to start a new life. Napoleon's one brother ended up in New Jersey.
We have cucumber sandwiches, which are very typical for a good English tea. Although I did take a liberty, I did not use the white bread, but instead of putting herbs into the cream cheese, the herbs are in the bread itself.
So we are the wives, mothers, sisters, daughters of the soldiers that are, for our crown, continuing to march. So we would be here to support them as they have the military encampment.
And what form does that support take, other than cooking?
So actually, we would not be cooking. The men would be in mess, and so there would be like 6 men to a mess, and they would actually cook for themselves. If we did any cooking at all, it was because we were doing basically our rations for part of the war effort and earning those rations so that we could continue to help support the military. But we would actually be doing a lot of laundry. We would be doing some first aid sort of things with the unit's surgeon, and then otherwise, putting together things like this for the officers so that they can partake. We would actually be probably the last to eat. We would make sure that everybody else had the opportunity.
But we're able to sample.
Yes, that's what we were doing, is making sure none of it was poisoned.
Exactly. Trust the French.
Yeah. And then you see us older ladies are still clinging to our 1820s clothing and bonnets. And we are doing our absolute best to sort of, make them a little more modern. But we're getting there, And then of course...
After the stays of the 1770s, this is almost like going, dare I say, naked. Comfortable.
So, and then of course I am wearing my little badge to Queen Victoria to honor her as our sovereign. And then these 3 ladies are wearing the clothing from the 1830s. You can tell that because they have some decoration on their sleeves, sort of quilting it together and having ballooned elements to the sleeves, so they were a little bit more generous. And that was part of the silhouette. And then of course, lots of petticoats, lots and lots of petticoats. So we have, underneath our clothing, we have a shift. And the shift is the thing that gets washed all the time because it is the item that's closest to our bodies. We didn't have underwear back then, so this was this shift that's under there. And then from the shift you have your corset. So you would wear your corset, and then you have what's called a corset cover, which is another light white simple garment that you would put over your corset so that it doesn't make the other items that you're wearing dirty if necessary. And then we have in the 1830s corded petticoats, and then another petticoat to cover it. So this is the corded petticoat. Actually, here's my shift first. Here's my shift, right? And then here's the corset cover right in here. And then I'm wearing what's called a corded petticoat. And so this is actually rope in between each of these stitches. And that provides this wealth of balloon effect to our outfits that you see. And then of course, we don't want that to be the thing that we look at. So we have another petticoat over that that has another like little like more pleating so that we can get more and more volume. And then of course, because I'm still using some of my items from the 1820s, I have on what's, can't see anything with this on. Here, let's take this off. We can talk about that in a minute. So I'm wearing what would have been considered, this is a pelerine. This is very 1830s, but this would have been my Regency pelisse. So I would have had this sort of a jacket on, not so much the balloon sleeve, but I would have been wearing this over my clothing in the 1820s up to the middle 1830s.
Now, you're wearing a hat?
Yeah, so this is a cap. We call them caps. I guess the vernacular that we all seem to use in schools and the public is the mob cap. It's not a mob cap. This is all linen and it's stitched and it's beautifully done, and it's meant to indicate both like our rank in society as well as keeping our hair clean, because we're out and about doing all of these things with the fires and the men and being in an encampment. So this was a really good way to keep us clean. And then our bonnets, they're our sunscreen of the 17th and 18th and 19th century. So we would wear these bonnets so that we could keep the sun off of us. It's also why we wear the pelerines, is also another to keep us protected. And of course, this is the one fun part that we can really do to our outfits. And so we do it. We make them as beautiful as we can, because this is one of the ways that we can express our own personalities and everything. And so since I am most of my clothing is older because I'm older, I am very blessed to have a daughter who put this together for me in the more modern look. So I'm very pleased with her and her efforts to make me modern.
Did you all make your hats? Yeah, you made your hat?
Oh,
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you ladies, did you make your hat?
I did not make this hat.
You did not make that.
No, not this one.
How about you guys? Did you make your hat?
I did not make the form of the hat, but I did put ribbons on.
Very nice. Very nice. And you?
You get the blanks and you would put the ribbons on. I didn't do this, but a friend did it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have some good news. The post has arrived and some letters are here for you. So if you will form a neat queue, I shall distribute your mail.
All right, the Tadgers fall in.
Not under arms.
Oh, you're not falling on me, I'm just watching. Do you know where Reed was? Hold on. Why don't you make water?
First letter is for Monsieur Long. Reached a Mrs. Madison Forsander. Well, we'll have one of you bring the ladies their letters. Miss Jennifer Beckett. Private S. McAvoy, where are you? A letter. You can read?
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness.
Sound it out. You can do it.
Par Private.
On special days.
Special date, all right. Private Parker.
Oh.
All right, a letter for you. Miss Meredith Barnes. Yeah, that a lady. Private Satillaro. Missing in action. Private Carton. Missing in action. Mrs. A. Wu. Private Reed Laverty. Making water. Mrs. Celeste Sherry. Private J. Gerber.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Salute the officer.
Lance Corporal Thomas Carton. Mr. J. Sherry.
Absent at the moment, sir.
Well, then, if you wouldn't mind, I shall give your husband's letter to you, along with your own.
S, Z, B.
You may read your letters if you wish. If you need assistance reading, ask your corporal.
3-5.
What does yours say, Private Parker?
Lady.
Well, it is, I guess I must. Mr. Parker, escaping into the army will do you no good. Your cross-eyed bastard son is now 3 years old, and poor cross-eyed Melinda says you refuse to send money, visit, or make of her an honest woman. Well, I think it only fair to inform you that I have confiscated your younger brother's favorite goat as compensation. Do right by cross-eyed Melinda and cross-eyed Jimmy, or I'll steal your grandmother's finest cow next. Big Bill.
Seems you're in a bit of trouble.
That's why I joined the army, sir.
I see. I can assure you they're all reputable characters of the highest caliber. I understand that you can, in fact, read. Why don't you tell us what your letter says?
Dear Sean, your dearest Billy told me you've gone to be a soldier for the Queen. What was wrong?
You could do it. You could do it.
You got this? You got this one?
Working.
At the next... You got this one.
The next poison factory.
Poison. There we go. Next poison factory. You only had to work 13 hours a day and 6 days a week. I think you fit the army in all its glory. Well, if I even see you again, I'll try to get you. You old... I think he's calling me something mean.
Your old job.
My old job. Back for you.
The poison factory.
Fantastic.
That's a lovely experience you've had there. Well, I am going to deliver the remainder of the letters to the ladies. We wouldn't expect them to march on parade with the men. So, Corporal, you may dismiss them as you please. We'll take these
Attention
letters
detachment.
over this one.
Dismissed.
Still got a few more.
God
letters.
save the Queen!
Well, let's see what the rest of the ladies do.
I do tea black, but thank you.
I don't know. From my sister who says she has been successfully
Via the 35th Royal Sussex
Transported. I hear it's all the rage now.
Oh.
That's why I joined the army. I was going to be transported.
Oh.
So I received a letter from Mother Blacklung. You won't believe the recent outrages in town lately. The Blueberry Girls gang, no doubt rejects from Miss Mitherington's boarding school for wayward girls, have been using coarse language and smoking pipes in public. They even belch and break wind and laugh about it, insisting on praying Enzeberg and Vespers. I am so glad you're visiting the army. Surely they are better behaved. Yours sincerely.
Oh my God.
Shocking. Very shocking. Those Blueberry Girls gang.
Blueberry Girls.
Blueberry Girls.